It's the way that the past like 10 minutes have emphasized the importance of having the proper equipment for this content creation thing. And now that I'm looking at the camera itself, it's crooked, but I'm afraid of moving it from a certain angle because it will, like, I might have to start over, and I don't want to start over. Maybe I'll try it just for the, I don't know, for quality purposes. Ooh, that that's even worse. You know what? It's just gonna have to be what it is. It's just gonna have to be what it is. Okay, so funny enough, I planned on filming like a reset-ish routine. I'm officially halfway through summer, so I have as much ahead of me as I have behind me, which is kind of wild, but it's also it's nice in a sense that I'm in a completely different place this summer than I was last summer in like every way. So that's refreshing, but it's also like, wow, time is not real. But it's also very real. I don't know. I think I have learned a lot over the past several months, specifically as it pertains to my grad school journey. And I'll come back and talk about that a little bit later, just because it is something that I'm still like processing and coming to terms with, and also just like, you know, moving through. And so I don't really feel like rehashing that right now. But in the midst of me brainstorming what I thought that this video would be about, I ended up having like a back and forth kind of download dialogue situation with my sister about being alone. And it was inspired by like a series of TikToks that I saw. And hopefully this sun is not too problematic. Maybe if I put my big head in front of it. But anyways, yeah, like I came across a set of TikToks of someone who was just like talking about how comfortable they are with being alone and how difficult that has made getting to know other people, because oftentimes their preference for alone time is perceived as avoidance. And their argument is like, I'm not avoidant, but I also feel like we tend to be very codependent in our society or in certain relationship dynamics. And as somebody who has really, really relished in alone time, specifically in the past few years, I get it. I get it. Okay, now the sun is bothering me. So I'm going to pivot. BRB. BRB. Okay, much better. Anyways, what I was saying is it's very interesting to me to see the reactions to those TikToks, because people were actually getting upset with her for saying that like she doesn't want to talk. She was like, there's nobody on this earth that I want to talk to every day, for example. And you know, people were like up in arms about that. And I'm like, when we really think about the circumstances and conditions that we live in modern society, majority of it is unnatural. And I think down to the fact that there are allegedly 8 billion people on this planet, that's one of the most unnatural things of all. But even with that, like, as somebody who also doesn't know anyone that I would want to talk to every day, and I don't talk to anyone every day, really and truly. And if I do, it's usually for brief stints of time, because I do find that level of communication unsustainable sometimes. And I think the nature of the communication also matters, but I do think that we are used to being able to constantly access people and their energy. And so when someone, specifically someone who is, you know, a woman, says, you don't get to have that for me, it can ruffle feathers, because as much as we don't want to admit it, we do feel entitled to other people's labor and to other people's energy, specifically when it comes to people who are socialized as women. Like, we are taught to be incredibly giving. We are taught to be useful. we're taught to put other people's needs before our own, and women who draw very clear boundaries about certain things are not, often not perceived well. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. As somebody who had to learn how to say the word no, um, and how to, not only scope out when my energy was being siphoned, but also put a stop to it. Because so many people are aware of the ways in which they are being. I keep looking around because you never know. You never know. But yeah, so many people are aware of the ways in which they are being taken from, or that they're being mistreated or taken for granted, but they never do anything about it. And I try to be as action oriented as possible when it comes to the protection of my energy and my peace overall. And that does involve detaching from some situations. That does involve being an unsavory character in some people's story. In some ways, it's also maybe manifested as disrespect, or as even avoidance. And in those situations, I do try to reflect if I agree with the conclusion that's been made. And my sister just said something where she was just like, it's our first time living for everyone, so nobody's going to be perfect. But I think something that's been very special and important to me, particularly as I'm coming up on 5 years of living alone in a completely different city, in a completely different part of the country, um, specifically in the pursuit of higher education, but even just in general, I feel like the evolution of me as a person has just been fast tracked. And do I think part of it is just like the natural human development stage that I'm in as somebody who just turned 30? Yes. The past 5 years of my life, I think many people between those ages experience just a huge shift, right? Whether you think of it as the Saturn return, is it Saturn or Solar? I think it's Saturn, because the sun returns. Right, 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 right. But yeah, like, do I think that I would be having the experiences that I'm having if I valued connection more? And that's not to say that I'm a complete loner. Like, I was just outside on Thursday, no, Friday. I'm around people. I'm not completely like reclusive, but I do find that in a lot of my free time, I am by myself. And people have commented on it. Some people, haven't understood it, or maybe even haven't respected it. But it just feels so, I don't know. It feels natural to me. I think it feels natural to me. I've always craved it. Like, I remember being in college, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to be a resident assistant is because you got your own room. And I knew that that was as close to solo living that I was going to get while also remaining on campus. And yes, I got paid, Yes, I also liked the idea of like welcoming new freshman students into a completely different environment, or just like end up working in like Greek housing one year, which was fun because it was like all we were all sorority girls and stuff. So like I valued those experiences, but I also love the fact that I knew that when I went back to my dorm, I was going back to nothing. I was going back to things being exactly how I left them, to things being um, just like just the peace and the quiet of it all. For context, I'm the youngest of four children, and I always say there was always somebody in my house growing up. Always, always somebody in my house. And it was normal for me. It was normal for me. Like, that was just the way that our family setup was. But I remember being so overwhelmed sometimes because I was absorbing the energy of multiple different people. Um, Often, often you leave a house full of people to go to a school full of people, or to go to a church full of people, or to go to a store full of people. Like, there being people constantly around, I think people underestimate what that does to you, what that does to your energy. Um, and while there's a lot to be gained from human connection, I do believe that so much can be lost from it because it's not about connection at all costs, it's about the quality of connection. So I saw many people back to the TikToks that kind of sparked this entire rant that I'm on. I literally sent my sister like a 25-minute voice note, and she sent me a 35-minute voice note. And people, one of the main rebuttals to the original TikTok is like, oh, we humans need connection. Like, this is what we're wired for. In fact, someone literally posted like 10 peer-reviewed articles to talk about the importance of human connection. And I'm like, yes, nobody's saying go off the grid forever and never interact with other people. And I think part of it is, again, people being triggered and or willfully obtuse about a different viewpoint. But I also think that it can become a slippery slope if you're prioritizing connection over the quality connection. What if the main connections that I have access to drain me? What if the main connections that I have access to result in me being abused in some way, or me being mistreated in some way, or me being misunderstood, right? Like, why should I stay somewhere where I'm not being valued, where, you know, people keep me around because it's easy to punch down on me, um, or they use me as someone to be in competition with, or someone to just like siphon from, but I never get anything in return. Like, do I need that connection? No. I I would, in that situation, or in those situations, I would 100% be better off alone. So all that to say, because I've been talking for a while now, I value alone time, and I understand the privilege that it is as well. And that's the other part that I do want to acknowledge is like, I recognize that I live a very privileged life, and some of that is out of my control, and some of that is the direct result of certain decisions that I've made. And I could I could make different choices, particularly when it comes to like my living situation. For example, when I was relocating almost 5 years ago, it was very important for me to not have roommates. And I knew that that would affect the place, like where I could actually live, where I could afford to live. Like, I knew that that was going to limit me in so many ways, but it was something that I was unwilling to compromise on. Absolutely unwilling to compromise on. And it's not lost on me that, many of the close connections that I've made since I've been here, a handful of them have been people who have lived with roommates and or partners. And there's certain difficulties that they experience that I just don't have to think about. And I'm not saying that like it's good or bad, because there are things that I have to think about that maybe they don't have to think about, right? Like, I'm very mindful of the fact that if I'm to get hurt or if something is to happen to me, that there might not be somebody around to witness that or to help me as quickly. But that's still not enough for me to change my preference. Not at this time. And I'm not saying that that might not change in the future, because I do think that there are certain situations and certain people that I could absolutely totally live with happily and like and like get along with. Like my best friend, for example. I've also coexisted quite happily with just me and my mom, especially when I was like coming up in high school. There was some time there where it was just us, and it was a girl's house for sure. It was a Barbie dream house, and I love that so much. So I've done it, and I've enjoyed it in some situations. And I, looking ahead to, knowing that things change and circumstances change, but as of right now, being able to have that preference and to be able to stand on it and to be able to experience all that comes with it has been very, very enlightening and very valuable to me. And it also makes me question the messaging that many of us receive, again, specifically as women, about how incomplete we are without certain things, and without certain connections, especially when we know that many of those connections tend to result in a lower quality of life. That's me putting it nicely. That's me putting it, you know, in the most PC way as I can. Because what I want to say is that a lot of this shit is killing us. A lot of it, like a lot of the things that we have been told to prioritize, do not feed us in the ways that we have been told that they would. Um, and even what we do glean from them, it comes at a great cost. It comes at a great cost. And I'm not I'm not willing to give up a certain quality of life to, one, appease others, but to feel more normal. Cuz I don't like, none of this is normal. None of this is normal. And I think, again, back to my sister's point, which is a common point that's been made, none of us have been here before, in a sense that we're all experiencing the world and life for the first time. It's also my right to try something different, to use the information that I've gleaned from my own experiences and the experiences of others to carve a different path. I don't believe that we're all supposed to do the same shit. I don't think that we're all supposed to, like, we're not, and we're not. We're not all supposed to have the same boxes checked. We're not all supposed to do the same things. And we can understand that in some cases, but in other cases, it's like, no, this must be universal human experience. I feel like the only universal human experiences are what? Eating, sleeping, and shitting. Truly. Truly. Everything else, you never know. You never know. And people even have problems with that. And those are things that just come naturally to us. And so it kind of makes, it doesn't make me sad, but I do find it fascinating when I see people who feel that there's only one way to live a life. We can accept that not all of us are supposed to be teachers or judges or coaches or firefighters, or architects. We can accept diversity when it comes to that. But God forbid you're a person who opts out of certain things. God forbid, you don't want certain markers of success, right? God forbid you want to avoid that expense, whether it be monetarily, whether it be emotionally. Like, God forbid you choose a different path that aligns with your higher self more. That's when it gets weird. And it's such a limiting belief. Anyways, I will end this on a positive note. And I feel like it mostly has been positive. Trust me, I can get bleak. We can go there. But all that to say that I am grateful, very, very grateful for not just the opportunity, but the mental fortitude to continue doing this stuff, doing this thing called life, and doing it my way. And it has come at its cost. It has come at a great cost. But I personally feel like it's been worth it. I don't think that I've missed out on anything or anyone that could have handled it. Because if you're still here, you're still here. And if you're not, then you had to go for one reason or another. But there's a lot to be gained for being able to spend time with yourself. And a lot of it does not result in you feeding the machine in the way that it needs to be fed, which is why it's discouraged. So yeah, I just talked for almost 20 minutes straight. I'm on a morning walk. Ooh, and I got 6% battery on my watch, so I should probably wrap this up. But yeah, I just be thinking. I be in my room by myself thinking about stuff. That's my life. And I like it here. I love it here actually. And I'm not gonna let nobody trick me up out my spot either, just so that they can think I'm normal. Girl, go be normal over there. Y'all got that.